This morning, Trump's own advisors told him to stop the war. Not the opposition, not foreign governments, not the United Nations. His own inner circle, the people who helped plan the operation against Iran, are now privately telling him that continuing has a price he may not want to pay. That price has a number. And that number is $100. $100 per barrel of oil. A level that hasn't been seen since 2022. A level that, if sustained for 60 days, historically triggers recession in every major economy that imports oil. A level that turns a military victory into an economic defeat for the country that won the war. Trump's advisors understand something that the military briefings don't cover. You can win every airstrike and still lose at the gas pump. And in America, the gas pump is where elections are decided. The next 48 hours will determine whether that number stays a warning or becomes a reality. To understand why $100 is the number that stops wars, you need to understand what happened the last 3 times oil hit that level. In 2008, oil reached $147 per barrel. 6 months later, the global financial crisis arrived. The connection is not coincidental. High oil prices compress consumer spending, raise production costs across every industry, and reduce the economic cushion that absorbs financial shocks. The crisis that started in mortgage markets was amplified by an economy already running on empty from oil costs. In 2011, oil hit $120 during the Arab Spring. Europe, which was already struggling with sovereign debt, tipped into a double-dip recession. Greece, Spain, and Portugal required bailouts, partly because high energy costs destroyed the economic margin that would have allowed adjustment. In 2022, oil hit $130 after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Inflation reached 40-year highs across the United States and Europe. Central banks raised interest rates at the fastest pace in modern history. The housing market froze. Consumer confidence collapsed. Each time oil crosses $100, the economic cost of whatever political decision caused, it starts exceeding the political benefit. And the people who understand this best are not generals. They are the economists and financial advisors sitting in the rooms next to the generals. Trump's advisors are looking at oil currently at $87 and rising. They are looking at the trajectory. And they are doing the math that the military briefings don't include. Here is why the next 48 hours matter specifically. Right now, 3 things are happening simultaneously that will either push oil above $100 or pull it back below $80. First, Iran's new supreme leader is still inside his decision window. Mujtaba Khamenei has not yet issued his first major strategic order. Every hour he waits, oil markets price in maximum uncertainty. Every hour the proxy networks stay at current activation levels without either escalating or standing down. Lloyd's of London keeps its Gulf insurance suspension in place. No insurance means no tanker movement. No tanker movement means supply disruption, regardless of whether a single additional shot is fired. Second, the U.S. Fifth Fleet is at its highest readiness level. Highest readiness is expensive and unsustainable. Military commanders have a window of approximately 72 hours at maximum readiness before they either act or stand down. Standing down without a clear diplomatic signal looks like weakness. Acting escalates the conflict. Both options move oil in the same direction, up. Third, China made a private request to Tehran to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. That request has not yet been answered. China importing 40% of its oil through the Persian Gulf is not a passive observer. It is a party with enormous leverage over Iranian decision-making. If China's request goes unanswered for 48 hours, Beijing will communicate something different, something that Iran cannot ignore. And that communication will either resolve the situation or accelerate it. 3 clocks running simultaneously, all of them expiring within the same 48-hour window. The advisors calling for de-escalation are not doing it out of weakness or pacifism. They're doing it because they have access to 3 economic models that the public does not. The first model shows what $100 oil does to American consumer spending. Every $10 increase in oil price transfers approximately $100 billion per year from American consumers to oil producers. At $100 oil, American households collectively spend $250 billion more per year on energy than they do today. That $250 billion does not disappear. It moves from Amazon purchases, restaurant meals, and new car payments to oil companies and foreign producers. The consumer economy contracts. Unemployment rises. The Federal Reserve faces a choice between fighting inflation with higher rates or supporting growth with lower ones. It cannot do both. The second model shows what $100 oil does to Trump's approval rating. The correlation between gasoline prices and presidential approval is one of the most consistent relationships in American political history. When gas prices rise 30% in 3 months, presidential approval falls an average of 8 points. Trump's current approval cannot absorb an 8-point decline without triggering serious political consequences for the 2026 midterms. The third model shows the difference between winning the military operation and winning the political narrative. America has already achieved its stated military objectives. The Iranian nuclear command structure was disrupted, the supreme leader was eliminated, Natanz surface infrastructure was damaged. Continuing the operation beyond those objectives does not add military value. It adds cost. And the cost, according to the advisors, is now rising faster than the benefit. This is the calculation that is making people in Washington speak the word that no one says out loud during an active military operation: exit. But here is what makes the 48-hour window genuinely dangerous rather than simply tense. Iran's new leadership has the exact opposite incentive structure. Where Trump's advisors want de-escalation because continuing is economically costly, Mojtaba Khamenei needs continuation because stopping looks like defeat. A supreme leader who takes power during a war and immediately agrees to a ceasefire does not look like a statesman. He looks like a man who inherited a losing position and accepted the loss. That is not a narrative that consolidates power in a revolutionary state. That is a narrative that invites the generals who pledged loyalty 3 days ago to start making different calculations. So the new Iranian leadership needs the conflict to continue long enough to demonstrate that it is ending on Iranian terms, or at least on terms that can be presented to the Iranian public as something other than unconditional surrender. This creates the classic negotiation trap. Both sides have domestic political reasons to avoid being the first to blink. Both sides have economic or military reasons to want the situation resolved. And both sides are waiting for the other to create the conditions that allow de-escalation to look like strength rather than weakness. In diplomatic history, this trap has a name. It is called the last mile problem. Both sides want to stop. Neither side can afford to be the one that asks to stop. The last mile is always the most expensive mile of any war. While governments calculate political survival and generals calculate military positions, the oil price is already moving in your direction. At $87 today, you are already paying approximately 12% more for fuel than you were 30 days ago. That 12% has not yet fully passed through to consumer prices. There's typically a 3 to 6 week lag between oil price increases and retail price increases across the broader economy, which means the inflation you will feel in April is being created by the oil price of today. At $100 oil, which Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and the International Energy Agency all have as their base case if the conflict continues without resolution, the lag effect means consumer price increases hitting households in May and June. Heating costs, food transport costs, airline ticket prices, plastic packaging costs, fertilizer costs. Oil is not just petrol at a pump. It is an input into almost every physical product in the modern economy. The 48-hour window is not just about whether Iran and America find a diplomatic off-ramp. It is about whether the inflation that was already beginning reverses or accelerates, whether the price increase you saw last week is the peak or the beginning. Wars have always ended for economic reasons dressed up as political ones. The advisors telling Trump to stop are not anti-war. They are anti-recession. There is a difference. One is a moral position, the other is a mathematical one. And in Washington, the mathematical arguments tend to win. The question for the next 48 hours is whether the mathematics align on both sides simultaneously. Whether the new Iranian leadership finds a formula that allows stopping to look like strategy rather than surrender. Whether the American political calendar creates enough pressure to make de-escalation the path of least resistance. Oil at $87 is already expensive. Oil at $100 is a recession signal. Oil at $120 is a political crisis for every government in every country that imports it. The market is not waiting for the diplomats. It is already pricing in the probability of each scenario. Every hour without resolution, that probability shifts slightly toward the expensive outcome. 48 hours, 3 simultaneous clocks, one number that changes everything. The advisors know what it is, the markets know what it is, and now you know what it is. The only question is whether the people in the rooms where these decisions are made will act before the number on the oil price board makes the decision for them.